And that's the first one. We're gonna try to move that one up. I'll ask. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to November 7th Planning Commission meeting. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Brand is absent. If you join me by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay. Pursuant to Council Administrative Policy, Meeting Rules and Procedures, Section 5.2, Decorum General and Public, comments by members of the public are generally limited to 5 minutes, or less time if a larger number of speakers is anticipated, or if approved by the chair. Speakers desiring answers to questions should direct them to the Planning Commission, and if relevant, they may direct them to the appropriate staff member. Speakers can also follow up directly with staff during the regular city business hours. Please file a speaker's card with the administrative secretary on the form provided on the counter at the back of chambers. During this portion of the meeting, those present in the council chambers are permitted to speak on items that are listed under items not on the agenda during the portion of the meeting. Public comments for scheduled agenda items should wait until that time. Zoom participation during this general public comment period will not be accepted. We would like to acknowledge that we have 0 general public comments that were sent via email or otherwise for our consideration. Copies of these comments would have been made available on the city's website on the meeting information page if there were any. Finally, please note that the commission's actions are final unless an appeal is filed with the city clerk within 10 calendar days.
Through the chair at this time, in-person comments, I have 2. First up will be Sue Harper, followed by Dick DeRossit. Sue?
Good evening. My name is Sue Harper, and I live in the Shadow Lakes, what? Okay. Okay. Again, my name is Sue Harper, and I live in the Shadow Lakes area of Brentwood. I'm actually adding some comments to follow up on a previous planning meeting about the Bridal Gate development. It's near Shadow Lakes and Brentwood Hills. As a reminder of the location, one of the main entrance or access streets into and out of the Bridal Gate development, most of the traffic will be concentrated at the entrance to Brentwood Hills and Shadow Lakes, continuing, often speeding, through the neighborhoods, all the way through to the high school and Adams Middle School. One of the main concerns discussed at your meeting on this was the issue of increased traffic through these neighborhoods, which is already a known problem along the route to Heritage High School and Adams Middle School. This has often been discussed and probably the biggest problem in Brentwood ever since the schools were built. Due to poor planning, the discussions lead to no solutions for this problem. Now, this project will be adding to this growing safety concern, both in the surrounding neighborhoods as well as any potential disaster occurring up at the schools. After reviewing the latest EIR for the project, we find that the facts are misrepresented and need to be addressed. They include the traffic data, which is from 2017 and 2020, where it is stated that the studies were based on conflicting methodologies, one which is no longer used. For example, initial number of daily trips were reported as 17, but with one revision went up to 2,697. From 17 to 2,697. 697. These studies also only counted traffic in the afternoon, obviously lower than the morning would be. In the EIR, the traffic circulation map presented mischaracterizes the affected streets throughout the community. Only one main route to the school was identified, but in actuality, several other various routes are being accessed as drivers try to find the fastest way through the neighborhood to get to school. Clearly, a new traffic study is called for. The developer has increased the initial proposal of 166 houses by more than 100 additional houses. More houses, more traffic. Any mitigation ideas discussed simply reroute the same traffic back to the same point. Besides traffic, there are other issues of serious concern by many, such as houses on capped oil wells, missing parks, and a huge flood area, to name a few. Hopefully, you will take a very close look at how widely this project will impact the city when reviewing it in the future. Thank you.
Next is Dick DeRoss.
This is a letter I wrote to the Brentwood Press and to the City Council. It was dated July 3rd, 2020. It never made the press, and I never heard anything from the City Council. I was very happy the Brentwood City Council member, who is not here now, was taking the time to listen to our problems with the road noise in Brentwood. Specifically, Balfour Road seems that she ran into the same problems I did. She was told there were no data showing that traffic was worse than before there was access to the bypass on Balfour. The last time I spoke with the mayor's office, November 15th, 2019, I was told to contract Caltrans. Not once, but twice. Balfour is one of the 3 busiest roads in Brentwood. Our house was purchased in 23 years ago. Unfortunately, our house backed up to Balfour Road, which was only 2 lanes at the time. The only protection we could get from the constant noise and road dirt is a 5-foot, 6-inch wall. This gives 0 protection for the horrendous and constant traffic noise. When we purchased our home, there was approximately 50 cars a day using Balfour Road. Before the pandemic, we had 500 to 700 motor vehicles, some very loud, passing our home. Now, they're building across Balfour on the corner of Sunset and Balfour Road. This means more traffic, more noise. What's going to happen when Los Medinas College opens? More traffic, more noise. I am asking that they build an 8 to 10-foot sound wall be installed to protect Somerset 1. It would start approximately a block from Fairview, reaching to the end of the homes on Balfour toward the freeway entrance. The city found $1 million to put artwork up on the streets of Brentwood, but they couldn't find a few $100,000 to protect the senior citizens in Somerset 1 and Brentwood, who have been supporting the city since 1994. Montessori School, they built some homes there just recently. They have an 8 or 10-foot wall before any homes were ever built. behind CVS, north at the end of the housing project, there's 8, 10, or 12-foot walls with approximately 15 to 20 cars a day using that street. On the other side of the wall is an empty lot. Griffin Lane and Balfour Road east, there was a new 6 or 8 foot wall built after a 6 to 8 year fight with the city. And I'm glad they got it done. I'm hoping that we will get ours done. I know we just received a paper through the mail, and tomorrow the city engineers or whoever does the work will come and take a look at our wall. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, I have no other speaker cards in person.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is the consent calendar. There is one set of minutes for the regular meeting on September 19th. Is there any discussion, or do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. At this time, I would ask the commission if you would consider moving E2 up to be heard first and E1 to be heard second. Is that all right with the commission?
I would actually like to ask if we can get a hands raised of the chamber of who actually is here for what item.
Sure.
Because if we have a lot for who came for E1, then I think that one should go first.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, the only reason I'm asking is I think that E1 is going to go a little bit longer than maybe E2. I could be wrong. So that was the reason why I asked. But yeah, may I have a show of hands of who is here for the Shepherd's Gate? Okay, very good. All right. And I would ask that we move E2 up to E1. And if that's okay with the commission, I'd like to put that out of the way. Is that all right? Okay, at this time, I believe that Commissioner is going to.
Yeah. So yeah, through the chair, in my capacity as insurance agent, I currently have business dealings with that involve the Downtown Business Coalition. In order to avoid conflict of interest, I'm going to recuse myself from participation in this matter. Once this matter is finished, I'll come back out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. All right. At this time, I would like to look to, would you be kind enough to go ahead and give us an update on E1, please?
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. The application before you tonight is to consider a conditional use permit application for professional office use located at 648 2nd Street. The property is located within the downtown specific plan with the residential neighborhood subdistrict. Permitted uses within this district include a variety of residential uses. Previous city and civic uses predated the adoption of the specific plan in 2005 and were considered legal nonconforming when the specific plan was adopted. Conditionally permitted uses include civic and cultural uses, related public serving uses, and similar uses such as a professional office, which are consistent with related administrative offices of public serving organizations. As such, this would require conditional use permit approval for the specific plan. The 7,500 square foot property includes a single-story 800 square foot building with 13 parking spaces to the rear. The site and building served the Brentwood community as the first library from 1922 to 1979 and as a women's club from 1931 to 2009. The property was owned by the County of Contra Costa from 1931 to 2001, with the city purchasing the property in 2001. The city has subleased the building for various civic groups until it was formally vacated in 2021. The conditional use permit request is to operate a professional administrative office use within the existing 800 square foot building. Although the prospective future tenant is the Downtown Business Coalition, the requested conditional use permit would not be tenant specific and would be instead based on the proposed operational characteristics. Typical hours of operation are proposed to be from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., with staff occupancy ranging from 1 to 3 individuals at any given time. Daily operations would include general office and administrative work, with incidental meetings ranging from 5 to 10 individuals. The facility would be designated as a private office and would not be intended as a public or civic building open to the public. The city published a public hearing notice and mailed to all property owners within 300 feet of the site, and in addition, signage was also posted on the project site per the city code. At this time, staff has not received any comments from neighboring property owners or members of the public. Overall, staff has reviewed the proposed application and believes it to be consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan, as well as the specific plan for conditionally permitted uses. In addition, the site has been used as a professional office for the majority of the past 20 years and has shown that the location and operating characteristics of a professional office can be compatible with and don't adversely affect the livability of abutting properties and the surrounding neighborhood. And with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the attached resolution approving the conditional use permit CUP 23007 to allow for a professional office within the existing commercial building located at 648 as conditioned therein. And that concludes staff's report. The applicant is also available for questions.
At this time, does the Planning Commission have any clarifying questions for staff? Commissioners, I do not either. Okay, at this time, if the applicant would like to come and speak, you're welcome to do so now. Otherwise, we'll move into opening the public hearing. Yeah.
Madam Chair, while he approaches, just to clarify, so you are now opening the public hearing with the applicant going first, yes?
Yeah, the applicant's going first.
Thank you very
If he
much.
didn't, I was going to open a public hearing, but he is. So
So
thank
good
you.
evening. Ricardo Noguera, Economic Development Manager with the city. We are the applicant. We've owned the property since 2001. We have drafted a lease agreement with the Downtown Brentwood Coalition that we're hopeful to get the conditional use permit approved tonight, and then going before the council for the lease. We work very closely with the DBC, as many of you may know, and they are our partner in crime on addressing business development issues in the downtown. We feel that will be a great use to have them over the next 54 months in that space, and they will be completing all required improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open up for public hearing.
Through the chair, I have one speaker in person, Amy Tilley.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight, and thanks for having this item on your agenda. My name's Amy Tilley. I'm the Executive Director for Downtown Brentwood Coalition. I don't have a lot to say, just that I appreciate the work you guys do here. I know it's a lot of time out of your days. You have full-time jobs, so we appreciate that. And we appreciate you moving this item forward for some of our board members and things that have come as well. Hopefully it's fairly straightforward. We're excited about the work that we can continue to do in downtown with this project. My husband and my kids will love that, you know, everything that's downtown related won't be in our front room or dining room anymore, so we appreciate that. I think there's a lot of great that can come of it. We're excited to work with the Historical Society to make sure we're good stewards of the property. It's has extreme significance, you know, to the community, and we want to make sure we take really good care of it. And we're just excited to have this opportunity. So we would appreciate this conditional use permit being approved. Thank you.
I do have one additional speaker card, Mary Black.
Good evening. I'm Mary Black. I'm representing the East Contra Costa Historical Society this evening. And I just can't tell you how excited we are to consider that this precious little jewel of a building in our downtown Brentwood could be used in this way for the Downtown Brentwood Coalition. As you know, they are creating a very vibrant downtown. We're very excited about that. I would just like to add one little piece of history to your history on this building. Although it did serve as the Brentwood Library for a number of years, and many of us of my era remember walking there on their way home from school and sitting in its quiet little book corner and reading. But it was also originally the home economic building, or the domestic sciences building, for Liberty High School when it was located at the corner of Maple and First Streets. Excuse me, whoa. My voice is shaky. Where the Veterans Hall is today was the original Liberty High School. This was the domestic science building behind there. And when the building burned down the high school burned down in 1918, the Brentwood Women's Library Association moved that building to its present location. So it has long served our community, and we're very excited about having this as part of the downtown. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay.
At this time, I have no other speaker cards in person, and I have no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. Well, at this time, does the Planning Commission have any questions of the applicant? Well, then I will go ahead and close public hearing. I make a motion.
Second.
Close. Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That being said, do I have a motion? Well, let's see. Is there any more discussion from the commission? I have none either. Okay. Well, I look for a motion now to adopt this resolution.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-034, approving a conditional use permit as further detailed in the staff report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we need to get Chair Commissioner Ziegler. Okay, let's move on. Thank you for indulging with us. We're now going to address E1, the zoning text amendment, conditional use permit, and design review for Shepherd's Gate Cottage addition. And we will now hear from you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commission. Good evening, members of the public. This is Miguel Contreras, City of Brentwood Planning Division, here to present Shepherd's Gate expansion, which is application rezone 23-001, conditional use permit, application number 23-001, and design review application 23-001. The project location would be 65 Sycamore Avenue. It's highlighted in red. You can see that the current Shepherd's Gate facility, which has been in operation since 2006, is situated in the area. That's where the expansion is proposed to happen. Part of the expansion would require a zoning amendment, specifically a zoning text amendment, to amend PD 45 zoning district to allow for an increase in residents through the use or through the approval of conditional use permit. Currently, the PD allows 18 women and children to reside in the facility. And in the text box, you could see the applicant's proposed language amendment. The language that's in red and stricken out, that's what's proposed to be taken out of the current text. And the language underlined is the proposed new language. As you can see, a lot of the language that was stricken out was the terms women and children, as well as battered. And these are to be in compliance with inclusionary laws and housing laws, where we can't really take the position where certain people don't qualify to be in certain facilities or what have you. So moving forward. The conditional use permit request, if the rezone were to be approved by the city council, would request an increase of 15 additional residents from the current 18. This would bring the total of 33 residents that Shepherd's Gate would be able to accommodate. These additional residents would be housed in the proposed cottages, which are essentially a single-family residence, if you will, or a single-family unit, consisting of, I believe, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, bathroom, and, essentially a home. And these cottages would be able to house one family unit, which would consist of 1 adult and up to 3 children. Part of the proposal, the applicant's proposing a large pantry. You could see that on the bottom left corner of the new proposal. And this pantry would be a communal pantry for the facility where, food and materials would be stored. Also, a shared laundry room for the new cottages and the people residing in the facility. With this new pantry, the existing pantry within the existing facility would be freed up and would be converted back to a bedroom, which would be able to house a family of 3 or up to 3 single females or residents, I'm sorry. And lastly, part of the conditional use permit request. So the density, the proposal to house these additional 15 residents would still be consistent with the general plan's residential low density requirements of 1.1 to 5 dwelling units per acre. As the site would contain 5 dwelling units, and the site is 1.5 acres, which equals to 2.66 dwelling units per acre. So it would be consistent with the general plan. As for the design review portion of the application, the applicant's proposing the cottages, which are 2,877 square feet. You can see them in the dark gray. And currently, the site is improved with a 7,421 square foot facility that contains 10 bedrooms. So these cottages would be in addition to that. The new building, as mentioned before, would have 3 units, a pantry, and a laundry room. But in addition to that, the applicant is proposing a new parking area. You could see it in the parking stalls that are in black. So they're providing 3 additional spaces to the 10 that currently exist for the purpose of the new residents in the cottages. And the applicant is proposing a new trash enclosure as well. You can see it on the bottom right-hand side of this the plan. And it's purposely situated as far away as it can from the surrounding neighboring residences in order to not disrupt day-to-day activities. Design review, the architecture. So The architecture for the new cottages would be exactly as the existing residential facility. As it will have the same tile roofing, stucco wall finish, and gable roof forms. And you could see the existing elevation behind the proposed building. In addition, there would be a wood porch with posts and wooden trim. There would be shaped corbels at the gables, board and batten gable detail, and a good neighbor fence in front of the front elevation. So realistically, nobody would really be able to see the new architecture. But even if the good neighbor fence was not erected, the architecture would still match the existing facilities. Consistency. So the project is consistent with the residential low-density general plan land use designation as the site is intended for residential uses, and the proposed cottage additions would be within the allowed density range. If the rezone is approved, then the conditional use permit and the design review would be consistent with the PD 45 zoning requirements. And the project is exempt from CEQA under Class 1 categorical exemption, Section 15301 E2, which exempts projects that are being built within an existing facility or part of an existing facility that isn't greater than 10,000 square feet. The project would also be exempt under Class 3 categorical exemptions, Section 15303B, which is the construction of small multifamily residences that don't exceed 6 units. The project was noticed on site. There was a 300-foot radius mailer sent out to the neighbors, and the project was noticed in the newspaper. All of this happened at least 10 days prior to the date of this meeting. Recommendation. So staff recommends that the planning commission adopt as conditioned resolution number 23-035. This would recommend the city council approve the rezone application 23-01. Staff further recommends that planning commission adopt a resolution 23-036, which recommends city council to approve conditional use permit 23-01. And staff further recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution number 23-037, which would recommend that City Council adopt or approve design review 23-001. And that would conclude staff's presentation. If you have any questions for me.
Thank you. At this time, does commission have any questions for staff? Commissioner Spaulding?
Miguel, from a notice standpoint, how many people received a notice? Roughly.
I have a list right here. Would you go to 44?
44?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The reason why I asked that is because when I drove by to take a look at it, the sign that is posted, unless you drove actually right by Shepherd's Gate, you wouldn't be able to see it because of the way it's just positioned on the street. That's why I asked the question of how many people were mailed to. I don't know where else you could have put it, but also I could see some neighbors being surprised by something happening there just based on where the sign was positioned. Another clarifying question for the regulations for in 17-495-005, Section F. Who is requesting that? Is that the applicant requested it, or is that the city updating it for inclusionary language?
No, that would be the applicant's request. However, the applicant wouldn't be able to, we wouldn't be able to adopt something that wouldn't be compliant with inclusionary laws. So if the applicant were to request specific language that says women and children, we wouldn't be able to adopt it because it goes against inclusionary laws. So there were some given back and forth with the applicant, but the applicant, for the most part, it's the applicant's language. bring it up.
Okay, so then would we not also have, and Katie, I think this is maybe for you, would we not have to update, should this pass, would we not have to also update 17-495-004J, which says maximum number of dwelling units, 181 plus a residential group home for up to 18 women and children? Just to make sure the language is consistent? Or does that not matter?
Yeah, I see your point. I think we had left, or staff had left J, which provides 181 dwelling units plus a residential group home for up to 18 women and children, just because that would still be the permitted use, but in order to accommodate the potential for additional residents under a conditional use permit, we could indeed modify that language to reflect that potential.
I think that's all the questions I have for now.
Commissioner Ziegler?
Yeah, kind of along those same lines. Obviously, the applicant worked with you. I'm wondering if there's going to be any unintended consequences down the line with that wording. So in other words, as an example, they pulled out women and children, I believe, and put individuals. This home, to my knowledge, as long as it's been in existence, has been for women. So what's not to stop an individual male from wanting to be able to, and this may come back to the applicant maybe answering this question. I'm just wondering, like I said, I understand inclusionary law, but at the same time, are there going to be unintended consequences that may put Shepherd's Gate in a bad position down the road?
So the applicant, as you mentioned, they've been on operation since 2006, and it's always been the same model of women and children. When they submitted this application for this increase, the project description is specific to an increase of women and children. The project, if it were to get approved, one of the conditions of approval is that it has to adhere to the project description. So that's kind of the mechanism that to be consistent with the project description, they would have to operate as proposed, which is women and children only.
Are we thinking the same thing? Does one supersede? I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just trying to make sure we're not putting the applicant in a bad position.
Correct.
So, I mean, if the project description says it's there for women, yet the zoning texting says individuals, I guess I'll look at the attorney. Which trumps which? Again, not saying it's wrong. We just want to make sure we're not.
It's going to add to your answer, most likely. The way I think about this is we've had a number of instances in the last 3 years where questions have been asked about a CUP following the property. CUP is going to follow the property, right? So theoretically, Shepherd's Gate needs to expand again, move to a different part of Brentwood. They sell this property to buy a larger property. Someone else buys the property, wants to make it a group home for something else, right? And then there's no notice. The city can't theoretically stop them because the transaction's already happened from buying that property, just to change, right? How does that operate? Because then the neighbors now who have known that Shepherd Gate is there now are dealing with a different type of group home. Whether it's a positive influence on the neighborhood or not, it's still different. And so we're getting something that I didn't buy.
I think there's a couple answers to these questions, and they start with where we are now, which is the residential group home for up to 18 individuals being a permitted use, full stop, right? So right now there's no CUP at all. And so if Shepherd's Gate were to sell and relocate, someone else could move in and operate that use without any notice to the neighbors, because it is indeed another permitted use. What they're asking for here is to increase the number of residents using a conditional use permit. And so in that instance, if they were to get the CUP, increase the number of residents, and then decide to sell the facility or transfer their programming somewhere else, and another operator came in, staff would evaluate the new operator to determine whether or not it conformed to the conditions and requirements of the conditional use permit that Shepherd's Gate had secured. So if they didn't, staff would have reason to call that use permit up to your attention and review it. Whether or not you could decline to allow someone to operate a use because they included men and not just women and children would be something that would need to be researched at the time. Right now, condition number 3 of the proposed use permit says that the proposed project shall be operated in substantial conformance with the project description, dated received January 12, 2023. And I'll let the applicant speak to this, but I think the project description very clearly indicates that the home is meant to be used for women and children. That might be a good question for them. Thank you.
Commissioner Rod.
Yes, well, I have the same concerns the other commissioners are raising. And I was going to save it kind of for discussion, but I did want to just stick a pin in the fact that we're also deleting an entire sentence that says, that the home shall be operated primarily as a battered women's shelter. And so we have no definition of what it is. Now, I was going to suggest changing that to shelter for survivors of domestic abuse, because I have no problem. Actually, I do know that there are people are battered and abused in relationships regardless of their gender. And it is such a thing now. People call them DV shelters, domestic violence shelters, but I didn't really want that language because domestic violence has 2 meanings, whereas domestic abuse only has 1. But I think that, so there's the 2 issues. One is the concern that I hear from my fellow commissioners about whether or not it's gender specific to women. But my issue is a little broader in that it's not use specific to anything beyond. I don't have it in front of me. I thought they were going to put it up, but the wording for the very first sentence of the CUP, I think it's on page 27 in the packet. If we can get it up.
27 or 26?
27, I think, was the packet page. Can we get that on the screen? Because I don't have it in front of me. I can pull it up here. I have the agenda in front of me.
Is this what you're referring to, Commissioner? This language?
Let me see, because that's just a slide. Yeah, but that's fine. Just put that back up. That's fine. It had it.
We're having some technical difficulties, so if you hang in there with us for just 1 minute.
There
Here we
it is.
go.
All right, that's
All right.
fine. So it says a residential group home for individuals who are in need of housing and related services is the only definition left in this CUP as to what the facility is for. So before it was specifically women's shelter, and now it's just people who are in need of housing and related services. So that could be a lot of different things. I mean, people need housing for a lot of reasons, and there might be reasons that people were not anticipating that facility would be used for in that neighborhood. So that's why I was kind of worried about the last sentence being brought out. And I don't know how far I want to go right now, because we can just go into discussion and talk about alternatives. Or should we just go ahead and start talking about it?
It's through the chair. It's up to the Planning Commission. I don't know if it would be useful to you to hear from the applicant first. Right now, this is just clarifying questions of staff, right? So just sort of short questions. So if you want to hold that until the applicant comes up, that's your choice. But right now, if we could just keep it to those clarifying questions, then I'm sure we can get into the weeds on these details that you want to discuss.
Okay, yeah, so I won't go any farther with that. I did have one other quick question about the fencing diagram, which is, oh gosh, what page is that on? Here it comes. I think this might be it. I have to shrink it. I think it's, where is the page numbers on this thing? I think it's page 55. I would need to, here's the zoom tool. If we can just put it up on the screen, that would be great. Yeah, I think it's on page 60, actually, which is gigantic. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, in the legend for that, it shows that the fence is a straight line with little blocks on it, but all I see in the diagram is a straight line with X's on it. And I can't see it very well. Let me see how it looks in Zoom. And I'm just wondering, it seemed like the fence might actually be going right across the front of the property. So I'm not quite sure where the fence is in this diagram. Can you help me out with that?
The fence would be, can you see my map? Yeah, would be right here, in front of the home, in front of the cottages.
Is it diagrammed at all in this drawing?
It's diagrammed.
I mean, that drawing is supposed to be the fence drawing, but I just wasn't quite sure. It looked to me like the fence might be going all around right in front of the property by the road, and I wasn't really happy with that.
No, that would be,
there it is.
the property line. So this right here, here's the fence in front of the walkway and the bushes in front of the new cottages. This right here, there is a fence around this portion of it, but this is also the property line.
Yeah, that fence is there, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I saw it when I was over there.
But nothing in front on Sycamore. No.
And
no
so the
fences.
purpose of the fence is just so people don't see the house?
Essentially, it's a good neighbor fence to obstruct the view. You know, give it more of a residential appearance.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That was all I had.
Okay. I noticed that in the descripts that there was no lighting. Is there a reason why there's no lighting?
There's your typical like porch light,
Mhm.
stuff like that. Nothing beyond that, like parking lot lighting or anything like that to keep to once more, keep the neighborhood character and keep it
Okay.
as a single family residence
Okay,
look.
that's fine. All right, thank you. Okay, at this point, the applicant is more than welcome to come up and speak. You have 10 minutes. I'll give you long if you need it.
Good evening. I'm Carol Patterson. I'm the CEO of Shepherd's Gate. Tonight I have SDG Architects with me, Shea Homes, and Homemade with me. And they are the building team of this project. And we have successfully done the same project on our Livermore campus. And many of the other people are supporters of Shepherd's Gate and neighbors. And so this application has been in with the city planner for 2 years. And quite a bit of that time was allocated towards this permit, rezoning statement. And so we have we have allowed the Planning Commission to take the lead in guiding us to develop this statement to the requirements, and teaming up with Eric and the attorney and Miguel. So the main part of this statement is we're always in need of going over the number 18. There is such a high need for women and children to have a safe place to recover from the trauma that they've experienced. So that number, we so much desire to increase because it's a constant battle to keep at that number. Or a woman and a child need to go on our waiting list. Second, the number in the cottages, that would be for our alumni women to leave the home to free up a bed for a new woman and continue working on her life in a cottage. And primarily those 15 spots in the cottages are for children. And so that's why the number is so important, to help me increase to a higher number. The second part is for battered women. In today's world, this is not always about a woman being battered and suffering from domestic violence. One of the causes of domestic violence, one of the outcomes of domestic violence is homelessness. And that's why women fear of leaving an abuser, because of the homelessness. And then on top of that, addiction follows domestic violence. And so we work in all of those realms, from domestic violence to homelessness, to poverty, to mental health. And we have a high success rate of over 82% of our women become productive members of our community here in Brentwood. So the word individual, Shepherd's Gate will not go away from our mission to help women and children. We are trying to be compliant to what the state of California is requiring from us. We have no plans to sell the property. This is our last expansion. So I'm going to let the rest of the time go to answering your questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Ziegler.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a direct question to the applicant. I hear what you're saying and appreciate that. I think it's going to be when we have discussion with the attorney. Again, it's not being opposed to the word individual. We're just making sure that we're not putting you in a bad spot. So I think when we get to discussion, we can talk to the city attorney. I have no problems with what you're looking for right there.
That will take months and months to overcome that dilemma of the word individual versus women and children. I've been at the plate for a long time.
Got it.
Thank you. Commissioner Spaulding?
Do we want to ask questions now, or do we want to hear from other members of the public before we ask questions?
I thought that we would ask questions to the applicant, but if you want to open it up for public comment, we can.
Through the chair, while the applicant is at the podium, I think it's fine for the commission to ask clarifying questions now.
Yeah.
The other thing that Ms. Patterson could do is just reserve the rest of her time for the end of the public hearing in case she wanted to add anything else. So both would be fine.
I do have one question, if I may.
Pardon me?
I have one question, if I may.
Yes, you may.
I was just wondering if, just because in researching this, I did some reading, and I understand that domestic abuse is not gender specific to women. And I was wondering if your program might ever evolve to a time when you were open to accepting other residents that were not women that were victims of abuse.
So we go with the safety rule of what the state prisons are. it's what your birth gender is.
All right, so you don't anticipate any time in the future that you would accept people of various genders that,
Only if the person completely identified as a woman and had gone through the whole procedure of becoming a woman. I've got to look after the safety of our women and children, especially the children that are coming from foster care and have experienced abuse.
okay, yes, thank you.
Okay, at this time, thank you so much. We'll hold your time. We'll open up for public hearing.
I do have a handful of cards here. We're going to start with Aaron Texera.
Hello, my name's Aaron Texera. I live here in Garin Ranch, and we have 5 children, and we've been around for the last 10 years, and we play at Heron Park. And I'm trying not to be emotional, just because I have a sister that's been through Shepherd's Gate and successfully. So, so forgive me for being so emotional. But I just want to say that we have supported, and we do support what they're doing. And all of our interaction is always, with residents from this particular Shepherd's Gate has been good. We practice football, soccer at that park. The residents walk, nothing but positive, feedback. Thank you.
Next up is Chrisanne Giles.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you so much. My name is Chrisanne Giles. I'm the Executive Director of Homemade Northern California. We are a nonprofit that partners with care providers like Shepherd Gates in order to lower their cost of construction for their projects. And so we are in full support of the proposal before you today and all the amendments that we've been guided through months and months of working with staff in order to come up to task with the state and federal guidelines in addition to your own local ones. So thank you so much for your consideration tonight.
Thank you.
Next up is Stephanie Fisher. The rest of these cards have a note that they do not wish to speak, but for the record, we want to make sure they are on record. Vijay Swandanas states, as board chair of Shepherd's Gate, I have seen the positive impact Shepherd's Gate makes in its community. Please approve. Alexander Liu, I am in favor of Shepherd's Gate. Christine Liu, I am in favor of Shepherd's Gate. Tina Moore, I am in favor of Shepherd's Gate. Isaac Ike Montanez, I have been a supporter of Shepherd's Gate since 2003. Jason Fisher, 100% support of this plan and proposal. Jan Fisher, this is a help to our community. Mike Fisher, we are in agreement that this is a good fit for the community. That is all the speaker cards I have in person, and I currently have no hands raised in Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we can close public hearing.
Through the chair, before you close public hearing, I did get one hand raised in Zoom.
All right.
Cynthiana Todor.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. While I believe Shepherd's Gate, it's an amazing organization. I've been volunteering for them along the years. I always direct people in need to this organization. I do have few issues with the way the project is presented and how it conforms, actually how it doesn't conform to our general plan and zoning. And that has not been explained, in my opinion, very well on the staff report. And it's really disheartening because, I can share that on October 25th, we had a community meeting and most residents expressed the fact that our city had a systemic problem in a sense that city staff always serves the applicant as opposed to looking out for the needs and the interest of residents. And even tonight, the discussion of the Planning Commission completely lost sight of existing residents in a single family residential area. PD 45, it's a single family residential area. And I'm sorry, I can't see my timer. If you can tell me when I have 30 seconds, I would really appreciate it. So in that idea, this rezone, if it was in any of your neighborhoods next door to your single family home, I think it would have been getting more attention and more scrutiny from every single one of you. And I would like you to put your hat as a planning commissioner and really look at the facts and what our general plan and respective zoning shows. This is not, it doesn't permit a multi unit type of dwelling. So please keep that in mind and really look out for the interest of existing residents. They bought into a single family neighborhood and now they're ending up to, with a lot of units. We don't see any analysis on the traffic. We don't see any other impact analysis of adding all these units. Would there be deliveries? Would there be any other, kind of vehicles increasing the traffic on their street and so on? And also, I'm just gonna keep it. How many minutes do I have? This is very frustrating. I can't see my time.
You have a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. So, when it comes to the CUP, you need to ask yourself, who will enforce the conditions of approval? A very clear example, in my neighborhood, I walk by it every day. People might think I have a problem with Vineyard Academy, but all I can see is that construction stopped, it looks abandoned, not a functioning school, no landscaping, no nothing. It's an eyesore at this point. Who's enforcing that? And if we adopt and approve a CUP for this particular development, I want to have a contact name who will enforce all the conditions of approval for this particular one. So from a CUP perspective, I'm not, I encourage you to vote no. Again, I want to recap, no rezone. Rezone is a very bad word for Brentwood. No, and then also,
you have 30 seconds.
This will be a homeless shelter. If you approve this, you are approving a homeless shelter, plain and simple. And also a proposal. When Shepherd's Gate changes the verbiage on their mission and their vision on their website, then we will go ahead and change the verbiage on our municipal code for PD 45. I think that's only fair to ask. Thank you.
We do have a couple more speakers with their hands raised. Greg?
Did you say you do or do not?
We do have a couple more speakers with their hands raised. Greg, you're next.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. I just want to let you know that I am a direct resident to Shepherd's Gate. Every morning when I wake up and look out my window, I look across a big open space. It's a retention basin, and I see the front of Shepherd Gate's house. Most days when I take my dog for a walk or a bike ride, I ride along the beautiful trail on the west side of the Shepherd Gate property. So I say those two things to let you guys know, if you haven't seen the property or the site, this isn't in the middle of any residential section. This house, the Shepherd Gate house that I've been familiar with since I was the first resident in my house, and have been a partner with the Shepherd's Gate, and they're an amazing company, and it's not going to be a rundown homeless shelter by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's important for everybody to know that there are no side neighbors, there are no front neighbors, and there is one house that is in the back that I believe that they've already been spoken to and they have no objection. But it's a beautiful project. I think it's something that will help people who have had a hard time in their life. As a resident who, like you say, is there, sure, it might be a little messy, a little noisy for a couple of months while they're building it, but I do support the project, and I think that it's important for people to know that it's not in the middle of a residential section. It's on the edge of town. As a matter of fact, about 50 feet from the side of this property is the city limits, and there's a big cornfield that is adjacent to that property. So it's not like there's a lot of neighbors that will be even impacted by this project. So anyway, I support it, and I hope that you guys move forward with continuing on Shepherd Gate's mission to have a place for people who unfortunately have had a bad turn in their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. At this time, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we can close public hearing. I make a motion.
Just one quick second.
Sure.
I believe the applicant had reserved 6 minutes and 21 seconds at the end of their presentation. I don't know if you want to ask them if they have any additional comments to make before you close the public hearing.
Would you like to come forward?
I'm just available if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. At this time, is there a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right. Discussion. Is there any discussion by the commissioners? Commissioner Spaulding?
Yeah, so first of all, I just wanted to thank Shepherd's Gate for the work that you do. I learned a lot reading and preparing for this meeting, and someone with family members who have been affected by addiction, the success rate you have had is phenomenal. So thank you for the work that you do. And my questions earlier are not about the work that you do. It's making sure that we protect Brentwood from the CUP in case you do change your mind to sell the project, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Also wanted to make sure I thanked Homemade and Shea Homes as well as SDG for the work that you've done preparing this project. I think that, I reasonable people can disagree, and I disagree with one of the callers who said it's a rezone. It's already existing where it's at. It's been there for quite some time. I think I read in the staff report, and correct me if I'm wrong, Miguel, that there's been no issues with, according to the police chief?
According to the police chief, yeah, no issues. And to the fact that some officers are not even aware that the police exists because they've never had to go to a call there or received an issue there.
Right. And I mean, I live on a court, and I know the police have been to our court for, things. So, I mean, the fact that they've been there, I think it's, that's why I said reasonable people can disagree. I think that my main concern about this is making sure that we get the language correct, and so that a CUP, if it ever transfers or Shepherd's Gate's mission changes for some reason, that we don't find ourselves in a position where we approve something and we're getting something else down the road. I know that's not the intention that they may have today, but things change. They don't take money from what I read, any government institution, everything is raised. So I think that this is a great project, as long as we get the language correct within the CUP, and I think the greater good is served by figuring out a way to make sure that we're all comfortable with the language for the CUP.
Commissioner Ziegler? Oh, Commissioner Floyd.
Yeah, at this point, I just want to bring up about the zoning. So I went into PD 45 in the municipal code. I'm looking at 17.495.003, which is conditionally permitted uses. And this is the thing about PDs, they can be tricky, but it says that it just refers that conditionally permitted uses are defined in the R1 zone under section 17.130.003. And on 17.130.003, item C, it mentions subdivisions having a reduced lot size, patio houses, row houses, apartments, and similar housing, which I believe that this is similar to an apartment or a row house, the way it's set up. And the provisions are that the entire parcel or a group of parcels are master planned, which I believe this is, it's a PD. And any increases in density are offset by lesser densities or greater lot sizes, which I believe the lot that the house is sitting on itself, if I read the staff report correctly, and staff will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the parcel it sits on is big enough to justify the density.
That's right.
As proposed. So I do believe that it's not correct that PD 45 is not properly zoned for this. And as somebody that strongly supports the PD system in general, and someone who is very inclined to be strict about any kind of rezoning for increased density, I see nothing here that meets that. So I think that the caller was just mistaken. The discussion, I brought up the fence in front of it, and I don't necessarily see a need to screen the front of that house. And I do see that it's right in front of one of the windows that the people living in that cottage would be their only kind of view out the side of the house other than off to the side. So to me, and I'll leave it to the rest of the commission because I don't feel so strongly about it, but to me, the fence doesn't really need to be there because it's just a house and it looks fine to me. But that being said, I'm ready to talk about the CUP when everybody's ready to go there.
Just about the fence. I hear what you're saying, but I also say there's gonna be a lot of kids, there's more children that are gonna be there. So I think there's also a safety factor there. Yeah. Now, I could flip my hat around from an insurance standpoint after things you've just seen in the news about defensible space, where I could almost say I'd rather see some sort of steel fence, tubular or something, but then that kind of defeats the purpose because you're not, with kids and things like that. So I'm not too worried about the fence either. Like I said, I think it's more there probably for safety of the children. I got a thumbs up from folks in the audience there, probably why it's there, not more decorative or anything like that, but more for safety of the children. I think out front, there is a little bit of fencing out there and a gate to come in, but it is another barrier. So to me, you also have a parking lot there. I'd rather see that there from a safety perspective than not having something there, just in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say with the fence, I mean, I think also, I have no issue with the current fence and certainly would not want a chain link fence because I think also from a security standpoint, I think about some of the folks who are living there, they're living there for a different reason. And a fence provides at least, some additional security. So I think that having it there is better than not having it there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see that it's a brand, and brands typically don't change. So that being said, I want to just get that out there. As far as traffic is concerned, we're talking about an additional 13 individuals or 13 accommodations. I don't see that being a big traffic issue either. Some of the statements that were made earlier, I'm glad that you clarified and did your research, Commissioner Floyd. I don't see this being a homeless situation. I think we have to be real careful when we start dealing with descriptions. Initially, back in the day, it was considered a facility for women and children. And the laws have changed. California is California. And so we can't use that anymore. But I will come back to the brand is the brand. You have a brand similar to this one, I believe, in Livermore. And so that being said, great. My only ask is that the landscape, because of what I see in Livermore, is pulled up a little bit. And I'm sure it will be, because what I see in Livermore and what I've seen here is very attractive. The objective, I would believe, is to have folks feel not different, but in a home setting and safe, most importantly, safe. And so with all that said, I think, yeah, I agree with the other commissioners. What you're doing is what's needed. I don't think that we can continue to go on about put it somewhere else. It's here, it's been here. And there apparently, as you've indicated, there's a need for more space. And I'm glad the gentleman that called in communicated that there's no offensive planting of additional space that would warrant an imposition to other residents. And so, yeah, I think that we need to talk about the CUP, and so let's do that.
One quick thing on the traffic, that just to point out, there may be an additional 13 to 18 individuals, but the majority of them will be children.
Yes.
So you're only going to have a couple adults. So again, I say, how much additional traffic will how many are going to have cars? I don't mean that disrespectfully whatsoever, but even if they did, you're talking about 3 or 4 additional cars parking there. So
Exactly.
I don't view traffic. It's one way in and one way out on that street. I drove it today. I've been down it many times. So I don't foresee that. Getting to the verbiage, I think that's where we might have to have the city attorney. Again, my point in this is not to slow down anything or whatnot and having to take months to rehash out wording and things like that. My question is, with the verbiage the way it is, and you say reverting back to the original CUP and their project description being of that for women that need the assistance, by changing the verbiage to what we're looking at, potentially looking at, what trumps what, or what, I just want to make sure we're not, again, what I said earlier.
Before you answer that question, the original application spoke to women and children. The original application stated women and children. It used the word battered. We're taking that out. Can you alter an original application? Or when I say alter, refine or revise the original application, we're talking about adding on additional space. So the original application stays as is. Do I have that right?
Through the chair. So as I understand your question, the original language in this PD does allow for a permitted use for up to 18 women and children to occupy this facility. And you're right that this text amendment does not propose to change that permitted use. It proposes to leave that language alone. It proposes to add a new conditional use permit as a possibility to add additional residents on top of that 18. So you're exactly right. No change has been made to that language. What I think Commissioner Ziegler is referring to, and April, might it be possible to share my screen? We'll wait for just 1 minute. See if the technology gods are smiling on us.
Good luck.
Here we go. So I think what Commissioner Ziegler is alluding to is this final section, subsection F, and the language there. Commissioner Ziegler, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So what I understand your concern to be is that this subsection does not specify that the group home can only serve women and children, but instead, right now, says it will serve individuals in need of housing and related services. And so what I understand your question to be is, if the conditional use permit is issued to this particular applicant and it ties their project description to what they have alluded to tonight, which is the service of women and children, does that carry the day, or does this language carry the day in the event that this operator transfers the project to someone in the future? Is that about right?
Yes, and I think Commissioner Sparling may have additional comment on that.
Okay.
Or decides, for whatever reason, to change their mission, which I'm not saying they will, but we have to plan for changes.
Right.
Because there is a concern, one of the callers did mention this, and this is a concern that is consistent when we have CUPs the last 3 years, is enforcement of CUPs, and whether it's real or imagined, that's a thought process in the community that we do not follow up on CUPs. And so since this is, I think I wasn't able to participate in the last CUP, so this is the first one where really there's been just a groundswell of, making sure that CUPs are monitored and enforced correctly.
Understood. So what I would say to that is the language of the code is the language of the code, and that is our governing document. The CUP language is important in so much as it further refines the use that you are approving conditionally. In the event this operator decided to change the programming that they were offering, depending on the nature of the change, it would no longer match what was in their CUP. And if you look at condition number 3 to the conditional use permit, you'll see that they are required to act in substantial conformance with the project description that was submitted to the city. So theoretically, a change in the program would be potentially a failure to substantially conform, right? And that happens, things change over time. In that instance, we would expect that the operator would come back and review their CUP with the city. In reality, does that always happen? No, it does not always happen. That's the truth of it. We do not have the capacity to proactively assure that every element of the project description is being adhered to. And I shouldn't speak on behalf of staff, but Eric will correct me if I'm wrong there. The city staff, addresses things that they are aware of, but it is not in their mission statement to go out and proactively check up on adherence to every project description element. Eric, am I mistaken?
Through the chair, I think that was pretty good. I was just going to add that, this keeps coming up, and it's kind of interesting for me because this is what I do on a daily basis. So the notion that use permit conditions are not enforced is not accurate. They are enforced. They're enforced at different stages. So in a project like this, there's going to be conditions that require compliance prior to any construction commencing. There's going to be other conditions that require compliance prior to occupancy. And there's going to be certain conditions that require compliance on an ongoing basis or operational type conditions. Those are the kinds of conditions that, as Katie was referring to, we won't go out on a daily or a weekly or even monthly basis to verify that they're being complied with. But if an issue comes up that, you know, someone makes us aware of, we'll definitely look into it.
Thank you. No, I think that answers my, I don't think, it answers my question. Again, I think just making sure, and it sounds like it is, understand we have to abide by new state laws, so there are certain words and verbiage that we need to use from an inclusionary standpoint. So I think that has been captured in section F or paragraph F, and then knowing that the fallback as part of the use description is there to help protect, I'm comfortable.
Commissioner Spaulding?
I understand the answer. I think that the concern remains the same for me. And unfortunately, I think this is the second time where an applicant's been caught up in my concerns about certain things that have nothing to do with the actual applicant. It's more of a process question, but it's an important one because if for some reason, again, mission statement change, they were to hopefully they don't need to grow because hopefully the need goes away, but I unfortunately don't think that's the world we live in. And they were to upgrade to a larger property and then they would sell this to fund that larger property. That's the scenario that we're in. And that's like, you know, where my concern is coming from. It has nothing to do with the applicant. It's the monitoring of how do we make sure that, and I don't want to create a scenario where someone else buys it because I'll offend somebody unintentionally. But it's that change that concerns me about how, you know, this isn't a neighborhood. It's not a commercial project. So it's making sure that the conditional use permit wording is correct. Because my initial reaction when I read the change, I thought this came from us, meaning the city, because the government would want more inclusionary language. So I was a bit surprised when it was coming from the applicant, but it's okay, because I heard something different in the presentation. Did I mishear?
No, it's working in tandem with the applicant. Like I said, you know, going back and forth and refining the language.
Okay, can I get who changed the language? Was it the city? Because when you say we worked on it together, it sounds like they were forced to make the change, which is fine. But I think that goes to part of my question is who is driving the change for the inclusionary language? Is it the city? And that's the case, that's fine. Because in my head, when I'm thinking through my potential scenarios that probably will never happen, is if the applicant has no desire to change their mission statement down the line, then some of my concerns go away, right? If the government is just updating the language for inclusionary purposes, which is fine, I receive that information differently. Does that make sense?
It does, and you happen to be looking at me, so I'll give you an answer, although I don't know that I'm the right one to do it. I can't tell you who came up with this language as we sit here. I think the applicant mentioned it had been a 2-year process, and there was a lot of back and forth with the city in those 2 years. What I can tell you is that under a variety of housing laws, including the Fair Employment and Housing Act, the city is not in a position to write language into its code that would discriminate on the basis of sex or gender. So regardless of who suggested the language or how we got here, this would be the language that staff would present because it is gender neutral and sex neutral. So there is that. One condition of approval we might consider, and the applicant hasn't heard of this, and I haven't vetted this through staff, but as we hear your concerns, is a condition of approval whereby if the operator chooses to sell the facility, they notify the city, not give us carte blanche over anything, just provide notice to the city, and then the city is on notice, and if the city wanted to review, they could. So that might be one way to address the concern of what happens in the future if there's a change.
Commissioner Floyd?
Sure. First of all, I don't think I said before, but I really admire Shepherd's Gate and the work that they're doing. I think it's an awesome program, and bless you people for doing this. And I genuinely admire the residents living nearby for their genuine support for this endeavor. And what I think may be hard to understand about why we're having this process discussion, it's because of those residents that live nearby. We want to protect them and their future so that in the event that ownership changed, that they would have the opportunity to once again weigh in on what they wanted in their neighborhood. And that's kind of something that philosophically that I try to accomplish, is to make sure that neighbors are always involved. And so we're just looking for a little bit of language to make sure that nothing like that happens in the future. And it's nothing against anybody here. We totally respect you for what you do, and very moved actually by what you do. Having said that, I'm looking at at conditional, the CUP item 3, and it does say that minor changes to plans and operation may be allowed subject to the approval of the community development director. And so it becomes a judgment call for the community development director, and we have an excellent community development director at the moment, but you never know. So I feel like this is a pretty strong protection. I'm just a little uncomfortable. Where did it go? Oh, it's not on the screen anymore. I'm a little uncomfortable with the loss of the language in that last sentence. The sentence that reads, "The home shall be operated primarily as," and I'd like to be able to put something there. And I understand that the facility has multiple purposes. I think I wrote down, battered, homelessness, mental health, addiction. Did I get that list right? Okay. And those are all good things to do. Let's see what we've got here for language. I keep bouncing back and forth. Not have a harmful effect. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong 3. Proposed project should be operated in substantial conformance with the project description, and the project description does define the place as a battered women's shelter. So I think we're close. I just would like to have something that would make me feel a little bit more comfortable, but I feel like if we could get the language to where Commissioner Sparling was comfortable with it, I would surely be. So Commissioner Sparling, I'm going to bounce it back to you and see if you have a recommendation.
I was going to ask him if he's comfortable with, if we can look at the applicant, and certainly through the chair, if they would allow the applicant to respond, if there would be some sort of additional item under the CUP that if they do, as the city attorney mentioned, look at selling, that the city is notified. So at least that way there's a check and balance to be able to look at it.
That would certainly lock in my, I think that would allow, I guess the best way to say it is allay any of my concerns about future change, and making sure that the neighborhood is notified and the city's notified to any potential changes. So
I guess that'd be a question for us to ask the chair if she's comfortable with asking the applicant to,
yes,
if they're okay with us adding that condition, that they would inform the city if they would decide to sell.
Oh, that would be fine. Before you answer that question, may I ask you a question about Livermore? How long has Livermore been in existence?
Since 1984, and that campus is for 70 women and children.
All right. Thank you for answering that. All right. So if you wouldn't mind indulging us and letting us know if it would be all right for you to notify the city in the event that you decide to do something else.
Yes.
We can make that part of a condition. Would that be satisfactory to the commissioners?
Yeah, I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may ask for some clarification, Madam Chair, when you said if you might do something else, does that mean change your programming
Change programming.
or transfer title?
Vision, selling, anything relative to what we've been discussing here. Selling, changing the vision and the mission, anything along those lines, just to veer away from what it is that you're doing with this facility now.
And we would not be selling this location.
Sure you
if we're doing another one, it's doing a third campus.
Okay. Any more questions? Thank you. Okay. Well, at this time.
Chair Roberts, I do have one more discussion item. It's just a small one, if I may.
Where?
I just want to add another.
Oh, please, by all means, Commissioner Floyd.
The replacement of women and children with individuals, I thought might be slightly problematic in case somebody had a reading, because we do have families and individuals. Somebody might, in some sense of wanting to complain, say, oh, it's not individuals, there's families living there. And I get what you're saying, that we're replacing it with individuals, but initially when I was thinking about it, I thought persons might be as good a word, but would not, exclude families the way that individuals might. So I was just thinking if we could just change individuals to persons, but you've done a lot of research on it. So I don't know if that's something that had been considered or if it's something that you would be objecting to. Addressing the applicant again, I'm sorry.
I'm fine with women and children. It's over here that's pushing me to individuals or people or families. Keep me at women and children. That's the ones we minister to.
All right, so it's staff, then I'll readdress the question to staff. I'm sorry, thank you. Yes, Miguel, would persons be an adequate substitute for individuals?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, I would prefer that if the commission is amenable.
And just to clarify, you're referring to
just the first sentence, a residential group home for individuals, just change it to persons. And I would be fine with that. I don't want anybody to come along and complain there's families there, that's all.
Commissioner Spaulding.
I believe I saw Katie nod her head yes, but I know the question was directed to Miguel, but that's probably more of a legal check to make sure persons can replace it.
I agree with Miguel's assessment that that's an acceptable change, with the caveat that Commissioner Floor, if you wouldn't mind, individuals is also listed in the second sentence of that same subsection, so we could make that replacement in both the first and second sentence.
To be consistent.
Sure.
Commissioner Ziegler.
Yeah, one thing that we haven't talked about is the design review.
Yeah, well, I kind of brought it up for landscaping. Let's
all right.
Let's
I'll start. No, on reviewing it, I mean, I've been out at the facility many times. I think the design looks great. Something that's not for you or for us to decide today that I'll talk about at a future time is landscaping in general, in terms of being fire wise and having, barriers and non-combustible material, tan bark and whatnot by facilities, but that's for another day. And looking at it, I mean, it's the same buildings, just single story, same facade, same decorative, detailing. I think the design is very nice, and I think it fits in very well. I actually, when I drove down the end of the cul-de-sac, I didn't even realize the meandering pathway that goes on the east side of the property line there is beautiful. I mean, I need to go down and check that trail out one of these days. But no, I think the design is very nice, so.
Commissioner Spaulding?
No, I think the design is fine, and I think we already addressed the fence, and the landscaping is good. There's no new, my issue is always lawn, and I don't see any.
Yeah.
Didn't see any there.
Commissioner Floyd?
Sure. I am totally fine with the design. I'm the one that suggested we could tear down the fence, and I'd be happy with it. So, yeah, I have no complaints.
Okay, it is. It's a beautiful structure, and it's welcoming. It is a part of a neighborhood. It's not outside in its appearance. It is inclusive. And so for that, good job. That being said, any more discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 23-035, recommending the City Council approve a zoning text amendment to amend Chapter 17.495, or PD 45, as further detailed in the staff report.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
May I ask for a quick clarification? I'm so sorry to interrupt. Two things. Commissioner Sparling was kind enough to point out earlier that there was a typographical error in the resolution. So with the commission's permission, staff would correct that typo. It's a numbering error. So with staff's or with commission's consideration, we would fix that error. And number two, April, can you put my screen up for a minute so I can share it? The commission had discussed some changes to the language of the ordinance that is the subject of this resolution. I've attempted to capture those changes with the red lettering shown here.
The CUP.
So this is for the resolution for the ordinance. Commissioner Sparling had brought up the fact that the maximum number of dwelling units might need to be clarified. So that's the first item up there. The second item addresses Commissioner Floor's concern that the word individuals be replaced with the word persons in subsection F. I don't believe the commission had directed any further changes to the ordinance itself, but if there are additional ones, please let us know and we'll capture that in your motion.
Where would be the appropriate place to add a condition upon
The next one,
selling the property?
CUP.
Notifying.
So if you look up at the screen, I've got one ready to go when we get to that resolution.
So the maker of the motion would like to amend the motion to include the changes that the city attorney has put on the screen.
I'll second as amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion.
We're laughing because two of us forgot our glasses tonight. So he has a spare, I'm using Commissioner Floor's. So we're all like, I can't read what I need to write and say what I need to say here. So
I apologize. I can't read anything close up. That's why I'm asking someone else to read the motion.
So I'll go ahead, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 23-036, adding the additional condition that if the changes in operations or if there's a potential sale of the property are considered, that the applicant, oh, look at that.
Can you see it?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Okay, so I'll start over. I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 23-036, adding the additional condition of approval, number 12 and number 11 added in as conditions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 2023-037.
I'm happy to read it.
Please.
I can see.
Thank you.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution number 23-037, recommending the City Council approve a design review as further detailed in the staff report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Well, congratulations. All the best. Okay, let's move along. Can't believe we're getting out early. Okay. Where am I read? Oh, here it is. At this time, we're going to move to here we go. Informational reports from committees, transplant.
That's Commissioner Brand, so.
Oh, he's not here, that's correct. Design Review Subcommittee,
It was canceled and pushed to next week.
okay, and Land Use and Development also canceled. Request for future agenda items? None? None heard. Okay,
Actually, I don't think this is going to be this is a question for Eric. So it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a future agenda item, but it is something that, like I said, in my day-to-day job, that I would like the city to look at as we start looking at design guidelines and so forth. Is part of that is on new developments and landscaping. If you watched, and I'm more than happy to share with the city, they can put it on their website, this story last night on NBC 11, Bay Area 11, showed what 5 feet of defensible space around a home can do in the event of a fire is absolutely astonishing. And that's why all the major insurance carriers are actually requiring it. We've had homes that people will not write, brand new homes in Brentwood now, that the insurance companies will not write because it has tan bark around the house and there's not 5 feet clearance. It's happening. It's going to get worse, and they're going to have those requirements becoming more stringent. So I think the city, I know Commissioner Sparling has asked for a long time to look at landscaping more drought tolerant. I think this is something we should look at as a city going forward, that there is defensible space around homes that will help not only the homeowner, but just, well, everybody from that standpoint when it comes to fire. So it's not necessarily an agenda item, but just want to make sure that was noted. Thank you.
I don't know if this is appropriate to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Mike will go on if it's not. Isn't that part of would that be part of the residential guidelines discussion? Isn't that coming back along with commercial guidelines and zoning? That's been in with the consultant for prior to me even being on the commission. So at some point that's going to come back, correct? Wouldn't that be the appropriate time to talk about it? Or should we make it a future agenda item?
Yeah, so we do have interim objective design guidelines that were adopted by the council at the end of June. We are working on a permanent set of those that will have to come back, through some public outreach and commission and council. I don't know the extent to which landscaping is going to be involved in that, so I have to kind of get back to you. I don't know as of right now, but certainly appreciate the comment, and we'll look at that moving forward. If the commission wants to talk about this in more detail, like outside of the design guidelines discussion, we can do that as well, but it might be a while before we come back.
okay.
I don't need to see that. I would just more bringing it up to the attention that it is something that's going to affect all of us, especially in California. So we might as well try to at least get out in front as best we can.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, that being said, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good. And our next meeting, according to this document, is December 5th, 7 p.m. It'll be held here in council chambers. Have a good evening.